Hi, folks. Welcome once again to Talk Formula One. Today, I have with me Wale, who is standing in for OBJ. Wale.
Hi, folks. Good evening.
Ladies and
How's it going,
gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had a bit of a trying time, but we're grateful to be back on air again. And don't be worried about the fact that we haven't sent you our coverage of Imola. That will come to you sooner than you know it. But let's jump into the race weekend. On Monza. Thanks for that correction, Wally. Well, I'm all over the shop, but hey, let's jump into Sochi, which was this race weekend. Wally, what did you think of Sochi as a whole?
Sochi, I think, was exciting. I mean, Sochi was a bit of a roller coaster, don't you think? I mean, as a Formula One fan, I'm enjoying F1 right now. You can't predict anything, and that's the beauty of racing. When it becomes unpredictable, it's exciting. So yeah, I thought Sochi was great.
Yeah, well, I guess as much as individuals have their favorite teams who they are willing to win, it becomes a bit boring when it's more of a possession rather than a competition. I mean, good old days of Schumacher winning for Ferrari, more recently, Hamilton and Mercedes just practically running away with it. It's we have a competition again once more.
Absolutely.
I think we the fans, irrespective of who we support, find it more exciting when we have no clue as to what's going to happen. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about qualies. I mean, that was interesting in itself. Hamilton comfortably on pole, and then track starts drying out, and it was more or less the spoils were there for those who were willing to gamble. How did you see that?
Well, I suppose true to form over the last few races, not only are the sort of, if you want to call them, the middle tier teams really stepping up, you've also got the weather throwing a lot of stuff into the mix. So whilst you're there thinking, okay, we all thought, yeah, Lewis has got pole, what do we get? There's a change in weather. And, everyone's bumming it into the pits to get their tires changed and trying to get their tires warmed up. And, a turn for the booth. Everything gets turned on its head again.
Yeah.
And, we have a totally unexpected pole sitter, which is absolutely fantastic. Fair play and well done. Yes, we can say it wasn't a true reflection of drivability or what have you, but in every sport you need a bit of luck. You need the weather on your side, you need the sporting gods on your side, you need whatever to turn the whole thing on its head. And I think that's just, like I said earlier on, that's the excitement of the way F1 is right now, because I think a lot of people had started getting really bored with F1. Like you said earlier on, it had become a procession, the usual suspects, Mercedes, Red Bull, running the show. But now we've got Ferrari stepping back up, McLaren. I don't know about you, but McLaren, they have upped their game seriously, and that is just so exciting. Yeah. So quali was quali. Not prior to the weather change, it was kind of okay. Yeah, was it going to be Max? Was it going to be Lewis? Was it going to be Bottas? And then what do we get? A turn for the books, a totally different, unexpected pole sitter.
Yeah, well, I guess like you said, it's very exciting when, you know, there's so much unpredictability, but more importantly, when you have people willing to take gambles, which Sainz did, and so did Lando, and equally George Russell. Well, obviously, they got the rewards for taking the gamble to
Yep,
So
absolutely.
I guess we jump into the race then. What did you think about the start?
Ah,
Was Lewis napping? Um,
you know,
it was mixed. It was mixed reactions for me because I think Sainz got a very poor start, but ended up managing to take the lead of the Grand Prix. So you know, it's like I said, it's created excitement for us because you know, who would have thought that with him getting off the line so poorly, he would still manage to take the lead of Grand Prix. You know, how did you see that?
Yeah, you know, the start for me was with Lando Sainz on the front row. I I expected, or I'd hoped for, a better start from the second row, i.e. Lewis starting on the second row, especially with the fact that Max, his arch rival, was at the back of the grid. So he didn't have to worry too much about that. But I've watched it again, and I'm not sure exactly what happened to Lewis on the start. I think Sainz, like you rightly said, didn't have a good start. Lando capitalized on it, and he had a very good start. Yes, fair enough. Sainz was able to reel him back in and take him again. But when you look at the second row, Lewis, you know, he had an okay start, but then I watched and it says, oh, okay, you know, he chose to go down the right, but then he was held up or blocked in.
Got boxed up, yeah.
But you got boxed in. But, you know, at the same time, I'm thinking peripheral vision here. You know, you make your choice, you stick with it, and you take what comes with it. He got boxed in, and he had to deal with that. And on the first corner, you know, he had to back off because I forget who he was that pulled up against him. Who was that actually? And he had to back off and let them go. At which point he dropped to, I think he dropped to
7. He dropped
was
to
it
7.
7? Can you imagine that? You know, on the first corner, he dropped to 7th position. But you know, fair play to Lando, fair play to Sainz. They got away well, and you know, they made it stick for a very long time. Yes, we can say, you know, the current, you know, champion Lewis was he played a very mature game. You know, he drove a mature race in the sense that he waited. And we all know that, yes, Lewis manages, his tire management is second to none on the grid. You know, and yes, eventually the race did come back to him. Okay, there was a bit of luck with the rain and the decision to change, but it was a great race. The McLarens, I think in the whole race, I've got to say I was super impressed with the McLaren. Lando drove a phenomenal race. Ricardo was, you know, I suppose with his win in the last race, you know, you kind of, the expectation has built up, you know, and you're expecting, you know, Ricardo to be in there fighting for P1, you know, to be there with his teammate fighting. But, you know, Lando was on it.
Yeah.
Science and science, they sort of diced for a while, back and forth. And yeah, it was great. I thought the start was great. Everyone got away cleanly to start with, and then we get into the race. What were your thoughts?
Well, I think you partially touched on what I would say. I would say possibly Lewis has sort of like said to himself, maybe unconsciously, no need to, go into banzai mode. Max is at the back of the grid. So, I can afford to, give a bit of ground and just make sure I bring it home, which is, what I believe he did. But, none of us will know for sure. We're not in Lewis's head. But, I believe that he felt there wasn't a need to, go for broke. It wasn't necessary. I think having said that, my heart goes out to Lando because he took a calculated gamble in quali to put it on pole. I think that he also tried to take a calculated gamble but miscalculated. 4 or 5 laps out when the rain started, I think was a bridge too far to go on slicks. If maybe they were 2 laps out from the end, I might have gone with the gamble to, just brave it and see if I could get away, with slicks. Worst case, he would have been second because himself and Lewis were about 50 seconds clear of the rest of the field. So he would have gotten away with that. But, 4 laps out, I think it was a bit too much too.
But I think he underestimated the rain.
Yes, I do think so. I do think and it just came down. It came down. And for once, I think because he actually acknowledged the team for asking him to pit for tires. It could have easily gone the same way for Lewis. So, like you say, it was a very mature drive from him because, teams called him in for intermediates. He's gone in for them. And, that's basically what has won him that race at the end of the day. So, yeah, but all in all, very exciting race it was. I think we didn't, one couldn't have hoped for as exciting a race as we did get at Sochi. So, having said that, what did you think of Bottas's drive? I think it was, I don't know. I get this notion that he's become lackadaisical about the whole thing, since he knows, well, at the end of the season, I'm out of here. But I would still expect him to make the most of what he's got while he still has it.
I don't think, I'm not sure that I would actually subscribe to that school of thought, as in him being lackadaisical about his performance, because as a racing driver, you're there to win. You're
there to win. Yeah,
regardless of the team, you're there to get the laurels for yourself and your team. I'm not sure what happened, because if you remember when Max actually passed Bottas,
it was so easy.
The door was absolutely wide open. There was no, it looked
like there was no resistance whatsoever.
There was absolutely no resistance to, defend his position. And you would think that, okay, I've got Lewis way ahead, and as a team, I will do whatever I can to hold
be a roadblock. Yeah.
I will stick my arms and my legs and everything out to give my, you know, my teammate as much of an advantage as I can. So that for me, that boggles my mind why he made Max pass him like he wasn't there. You know, only only Bottas can answer that question. And as a result of that, I think his drive at Sochi left a lot to be desired for me, because it didn't seem like he was making an effort in this race. He wasn't. I don't think he was making an effort. I mean, if you compare it to Alonso wasn't, you know, it took a while for him to be passed. Alonso actually did defend his position for quite as long as he could.
Good.
No question. The power in both cars are totally different. But Alonso was able to fend him off for a while. So the question beggars as to why, with what Bottas had, he didn't put up any kind of resistance. That's one that will be analyzed for some time, I believe, as to why that pass was so easy, or what was going on in Bottas. I mean, there was one of the commentators said perhaps he didn't even realize he was there. Maybe he didn't realize, and that might make that kind of makes some sense, you know, by virtue of the ease at which he passed him.
He passed him, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so here's what's interesting for me. I kind of like would have expected that, you know, he would have, similar to Max, given the equipment he has, made a drive through from the back of the grid through to, you know, a podium spot. I mean, but he just did not seem to make much progress. It's questionable, to say the least.
Yeah.
And what makes it even more of a misery is the fact that Bottas has actually won at Sochi in the past.
Yep.
So, you know, you're asking yourself questions, you know, but I guess time will tell.
Yeah,
what did you
like
think
I said,
of?
this is one that will be analyzed for quite a while. You know, I think for the, you know, for those who are really into understanding racing, and it's one that one has to sort of like think about quite a bit to understand how that pass was so easy at one of his most successful tracks.
Facts, yes.
You know.
Well, I think there were one or two other incidences. I think the Aston Martin boys practically Vettel and Stroll coming together.
Yeah, that was close.
That was really close. But then I think mention should be made of Leclerc. He didn't seem to have so good a race in Sochi, and it's made more apparent given the fact that Sainz was the other person on podium. You know, what's happening with him? Anyhow, like you just said, I guess time will tell as well.
Yeah. Going back to Lewis's race, yes, Lewis won, but as we said at the beginning of this show, sometimes you need luck, and I believe for Lewis, because Lewis left to him. Yes, his team called him to pit. He was asked to pit. Initially, he refused. And then it's maybe one of those split-second things where you're thinking, right, perhaps let me defer to them because they can see the rain, they can see what's happening.
Yeah.
And at that split second, he made the decision that I believe won him that race.
That race, yes. No, no doubt. I believe also that if Lando had pitted when Lewis had pitted, he would have still. I feel he managed to stay ahead of Lewis. Bearing in mind he was ahead of Lewis when they got to the pit lane. He would have gone in before Lewis, and well, we can't say for certain, but I feel that the McLaren boys would have turned him around and gotten him out ahead of Lewis. I just feel that.
Let's not forget who the Rain Master is.
Yeah, there's that. But,
so, yes, perhaps Lando could have been released quicker if he pitted earlier. But Lewis in the rain with what he had and going for his 100th win, I'm not taking it. I'm not, I won't, that's one that I won't want to call. I think either way, Lewis would have done it. If you'd put them both into the pit at the same time, I suspect, well, we're never going to know. We're never going to know.
We're never going to.
But I fancied Lewis's chances of coming out of that one on top,
Well, I guess we've got to go. But on a closing note, my mate who I watched the race with was of the notion that Lewis wasn't aggressive enough because he felt that, he sat too long behind Lando. Now, here's my thoughts on that. I believe that, like we've said, he drove a mature race, but I also believe that Lewis is kind of like conserving engines. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm of the notion that he didn't feel there was necessity to overstrain the engine. I feel that Lewis had, felt that he could, at some point in time before the race ended, take Lando. So he wasn't going to, unnecessarily stress his engine and, thereby give him, an engine that he can keep using without compromising it. I don't know if I'm saying things wrongly here, but that was the kind of feeling I had. What do you think?
I would tend to somewhat agree with you on that. If I'm correct, I think he has 2 more power units. He's got 2 left for the season, right? Or something. Yeah. I believe so. And yes, he was he might have been conserving his engine, knowing that Max was way down on him. And if it hadn't been for the change in the rain, Max was still, I think, around about 6th or 7th.
Yes.
Until he decided to dive into the pits with Lewis. Yes. And the whole game changed at that point in time. Also, bear in mind that I believe Lewis was also conserving his tires. I suspect Lewis was also managing his tires for the final push.
Yes.
Where he was probably going to throw everything, including the kitchen sink,
at Lando. Yeah,
because if you noticed, about 4 laps to the end, Lewis closed the gap down to less than half. I think he was 0.5 or something.
Yes.
He was all over Lando's gearbox. And then he backed off.
Yes.
Perhaps what he was doing was he was sizing him up.
No, this is exactly what I said to my mate who I watched the race with. I said, I think Lewis has, he scoped out what he needs to do, man.
Absolutely. He knew he had the grunt to get up to Lando, and his experience would have served him well. And the fact that he would have conserved his tires, and with 2-3 laps to go, he was going to make Lando blink at some point.
One point in time. Yeah.
Take him at that, and take him there. But for the rain, and Max also making a very clever tactical decision to go in with Lewis, that was what turned the podium situation around, in my opinion, because Max would not have been on that podium. So, you know, again, it had to do with, you know, just, you know, the racecraft, the knowledge of, you know, what to do and when to do it, you know, is what I think got those podium positions as they were. Like, as you know, as everybody has said, yes, we really feel for Lando, but he's learned a very, very hard fact, you know, very hard.
It will serve him well for the future.
It will serve him well down the road, no question about it. You know, most drivers go through this. Someone said Lando didn't pit because he felt he had got the checkered flag, and you know, it was way too early. And that just again comes with experience. Sometimes you just have to calm down and let the race come to you, not go to the race. Let the race come to you. And so I believe Lando learned a very good lesson, but it's a very good, Sochi was a very good race for, you know, the middle teams. I don't even know whether to call them middle teams anymore, because McLaren is definitely in there with a shout right now. Ferrari seems to be doing, they seem to be coming back as well. And you know, like we said, with the weather chopping and changing things, all we need is a bit of weather to mix things up. And
yes,
you know, so we have a very exciting race. But all in all, I think the fans were the winners of that. Well, apart from Max, oh yeah, we have to give Max some massive kudos for coming from the back and taking second. I think Max was the real winner in that race, if you ask me personally.
Yes. Oh no, without a shadow of doubt. You know, I mean, Lewis won, but I think the actual winner at Sochi would be Max, given
Max. 100%.
I mean, it's serious damage limitation from total, where I'm standing.
Total.
You know. Total. So yeah. I was going to chip in just before we go. That also, I think Lewis had to have been gauging what he was doing, bearing in mind Lando was on tires 2 laps fresher than his. That's also a very, you know, it's also a very important aspect of, you know, the whole thing. But yeah, Sochi was exciting.
Yep.
The season has just gotten even more exciting.
2 points with 2 points in it.
Yes, 2 points in it. You know, folks, thanks once again for joining us here on Talk Formula One. And like I said, we will be giving you a report on Monza. So keep it locked here, and we will push that out to you before too long. Whatever you do, let's talk Formula One. From me, it's take care. Wale.
Thanks, Dele. Thanks, folks. We look forward to the next race. Have a good evening.